Hey guys, in today's video we're going to be working on our Wearables 2.0 project. First we'll go over the materials and tools needed. We have our felt with a needle, Alligator Clips, a battery pack, 2 coin cell batteries, a Adafruit Gemma M0, Adafruit Sewable NeoPixels, a micro USB cable, conductive thread, regular thread, sticky dots, and a thread puller. This can be useful with small needles. A pair of scissors, and optionally pliers, and clear nail polish for holding our knots. A stitch remover can also be useful depending on your project. Component overview and testing. The Gemma has a USB port on top, a ground pin, digital pin 1, V out, a JST connector, 3-volt out, digital pin 0, and digital pin 2. There's also a reset button on the left and a power switch on the right. The Adafruit NeoPixel has a positive side, negative side, a data in, and a data out. I started by prototyping my circuit, connecting Alligator Clips to ground, V out, and D1. Then I connected the other ends to positive and negative on the NeoPixel and connected the data to the data in, paying attention to the arrows. I then connected the data out, as well as ground and 5 volts, to my second NeoPixel, once again paying attention to the direction of the arrow. Now that my data pins are jumping from the M0 to both NeoPixels, and my positive is connected to positives and ground is connected to grounds, I go ahead and get my USB cable and plug it in. Once I plug the other end into my computer, I can see the purple light comes on. To set up the Gemma, open Safari and go to the Arduino website. Once on the Arduino website, go to the software menu and click Downloads. On the Downloads page, scroll down to the macOS download and click it. If you're on Windows, click the Windows download. You can click Just Download for the software. After letting the software download, go ahead and launch Arduino. Once you've launched Arduino, navigate to the Tools menu and go down to Boards and click Board Manager. In the Board Manager, type Adafruit SAMD and install this set of boards. To do so, click Install and let it finish. After doing that, click Tools again and go down to Boards. Click on the Arduino SAMD boards and click on the Adafruit Gemma M0. After doing that, go to the Tools menu and go to Manage Libraries. In the Library Manager, search for the NeoPixel library by Adafruit. Go ahead and install that library. Select Install All and let it install. Once your library is installed, go to File, Examples, scroll down to NeoPixel Examples and open Strand Test. After opening Strand Test, we're going to select our board port. So we go to Tools, go down to Ports, and make sure the port with the Gemma M0 is selected. Now we may need to edit our code slightly. The LED pin for me is pin 1, and the LED count is 9. Go ahead and click Verify and see that on the bottom right there's a progress bar showing the verification of our sketch. After pressing Upload, we'll see a sequence of green and red LEDs flashing on the Gemma. After uploading our sketch, we can see our NeoPixels illuminating. So this is my sketch for my design, and we can see that I've put my battery here on the far left. I laid out my stitches, and we can see here I have the ground pin labeled, and that runs to all the negatives of the NeoPixels. On the bottom here, I have the V out pin, which runs to all the positives of the NeoPixels. And in the middle, I have digital pin 1, and that is going to connect to the data in of my first NeoPixel. Then the data out from that NeoPixel is going to go to the data in of the next, and so on, so that my data lines kind of jump from one pixel to the next. And now that I have this design, I can start sewing and putting it into practice. After laying out my components, I make sure that they're oriented correctly for the power, data, and ground pins. I then use my sticky dots to hold my components in place before sewing. It's wise to do this with your Gemma as well as your NeoPixels because they can move around while you're sewing. Using the sticky dots helps you keep everything in the right place. Once all my components are stuck in place and I like where they're oriented, I get started with sewing. I use my needle with my conductive thread and start sewing the ground from the Gemma M0 to the ground of each NeoPixel, making sure to tie a knot on each pixel. If you need help sewing with your conductive thread, there is links in the description to our previous video, Wearables 1.0, where we go over the basics of sewing with conductive thread, things like tying knots and making a running stitch. And for more advanced help, reference the Adafruit tutorial that is also linked in the description. After I finish sewing my ground line, I get to work on the V out from the M0 connecting to all the positive pads on the NeoPixels. Once I finish sewing the positive and ground lines, I'm going to start sewing the data lines, going from digital pin 1 to the data in on the first NeoPixel, and then following that pattern all the way down the line. I also am using clear nail polish to seal my knots after I tie them. At this point in the project, you can see me using a Q-tip with some nail polish remover just to clean up any extra clear nail polish on the pads. And now that I'm finished with all my sewing, you can see my positive, negative, and data lines. And on the back, you can see where I've put some clear nail polish to hold my knots. I noticed that this side of the Gemma is kind of floppy, so I used some regular thread to sew it down. I then used some clear nail polish to hold that knot. Once I finished that, I decided to start reassembling my tie, cutting out the necessary fabric that was in the way, and then using fabric glue to seal everything back together. Once this was complete, I got my battery pack with batteries inside and plugged it in, and turning on the power switch on the Gemma shows me my pixels illuminating. And my Wearables 2.0 project is finished, using the Adafruit Gemma M0 and Adafruit Sewable NeoPixels. Thanks guys for building with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.